Welcome to the deep dive. We break down the sources so you get the core knowledge fast. Today, we're really digging into something foundational, the power, the actual operational power of your subconscious mind. We've pulled insights from a classic text, one that calls this the master secret of the ages. Our mission here, it's not just philosophy. We want to look under the hood at the mechanism. How does your regular habitual thinking, the mental images, that quiet chatter in your head, how does that actually shape your destiny? I mean, you look around, right? Why does one person seem to just attract success, happiness, while someone else struggles constantly? This source argues pretty strongly that difference isn't out there. It's internal. It's about the technique you use inside.
Exactly. And what's really compelling, I think, is this idea that you're not trying to find power, you're learning how to access it. The text talks about this gold mine, infinite intelligence, boundless love already inside you. You've already got the goods, so to speak. So the whole challenge, really, it just boils down to learning the technique, the mental approach. How do you tap into that huge resource for, well, for a better life, health, prosperity, happiness? That's what we're exploring today.
Okay, let's get into those mechanics then, because understanding how the two parts of your mind interact, that seems absolutely critical. First step. The source talks about two main layers. We need to focus less on maybe what they do in isolation and more on the relationship between them. So first up, you got the conscious mind, the objective mind, your surface self, maybe. Think of it as the part that reasons, analyzes.
Yeah.
It's critical. It's the watchman at the gate, as the text puts it. It gets input from your senses, looks at the world, and decides basically, do I let this information in?
Right. And then, crucially, there's the subconscious mind, the SCM. This is the subjective deep self. And here's the really key distinction. It's the irrational mind. I mean, it controls all the vital stuff, your heartbeat, breathing, healing automatically, but it's intellectual role, purely execution. It's the doer.
And this is where it gets, well, kind of terrifyingly simple. The subconscious mind accepts whatever the conscious mind tells it, full stop. It doesn't analyze, it doesn't debate or, argue with you. It just takes the order.
That's it, exactly. The source uses a great analogy. Think of your subconscious like really fertile soil, just ready to grow anything. Your thoughts, good or bad, constructive or destructive, they're like seeds you plant in that soil. And the subconscious, well, it doesn't have a preference, doesn't judge. You plant nightshade, it grows nightshade. You plant corn, it grows corn. It just takes the seed and uses all its power to make it grow. So everything you experience out there, your conditions, your life, it's just the result of what you've planted inside.
Wow. It sounds almost too simple, but yeah, it really puts the responsibility back on you, doesn't it? For the quality of those seeds you let past that conscious watchman.
Mm-hmm. And that leads us straight into suggestion and how powerfully it shapes things. The material kind of paints two pictures. You've got the magnetized person full of confidence, feels like they're born to win, and then the demagnetized person just full of fear, doubt, always worrying, oh, what if I fail? What if this goes wrong?
Right, and for the positive side, there's that famous story about Caruso, the opera singer. Huge talent, obviously, but apparently suffered from terrible stage fright. Like, his throat would literally constrict. He called it a psychological chokehold.
Yeah, right before performing, he'd feel this panic rising, and he realized, wait, I'm fighting myself here. So he'd shout internally, something like, the little me is trying to strangle the big me. By naming that conscious fear, little me, he could then command it. Get out. The big me wants to sing through me. And that command, that decisive instruction accepted by his subconscious, just released everything, let him perform brilliantly. It was conscious direction overcoming that irrational fear.
That's a great example of using conscious intent positively. But what happens when the intent is maybe less clear or tragically literal? This is where the idea that the subconscious is non-selective gets... Well, intent, it doesn't get sarcasm, right? It just takes the intention literally.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a real danger here we have to highlight. The source tells the story, quite a disturbing one, actually, about a man whose daughter had some supposedly incurable conditions. And for maybe 2 years, he apparently kept saying habitually, I'd give my right arm to see her cured. Just an expression of deep desire.
That's something you'd say, yeah. Not meant literally.
Not consciously, no, but the subconscious. It operates in that realm of absolute literalness. It took that statement as a contract, essentially. And then he was in a serious car accident, lost his right arm. And immediately after, his daughter's incurable diseases just vanished. The subconscious executed the sacrifice the conscious mind had decreed with such feeling, over and over again.
That's chilling.
It is. And think about the other example. The relative who was told by a crystal gazer he'd die at the next new moon, and he did. died exactly when predicted. But the key point the source makes is it wasn't the prediction itself that had the power. It was the man's total, unwavering acceptance of it. He dwelled on it, feared it, believed it completely, until his own subconscious brought about his body's destruction.
So hang on. Is the implication that the subconscious is like malicious?
Yeah.
Or is it just completely terrifyingly literal and automatic?
It's the second one. Completely amoral, completely literal.
No.
It doesn't question the command, the blueprint, it just executes. Health, destruction. It follows the plan it's given. And that power, that suggestion, only works if you accept it fully. Which brings us back to why the conscious mind's job as the watchman at the gate is so incredibly important. It has to choose good thoughts, reject the negative ones. Because once a suggestion gets accepted, the subconscious has to work on manifesting it.
Okay, right. So given that literal nature, we need some precise tools, don't we? How do we make sure we're sending the right signals? The material gives some specific techniques. The foundation seems to be what it calls scientific prayer, which isn't necessarily religious in the usual sense, right? It's more about the conscious and subconscious working together harmoniously for a specific goal. Basically, your deepest desire, felt consistently, is your prayer.
Exactly. And once you know what you want, what that desire is, one really powerful method is visualization, the mental movie technique. The core idea is to impress your subconscious by vividly feeling and seeing the desired outcome as if it's already happened. It's real right now. You don't focus on the struggle to get there. You focus on the end result, like an architect sees the finished building, not just the bricks and mortar.
Yeah, there's that example of the guy who needed a job,
Yeah.
right? He pictured himself giving this amazing lecture, feeling the applause, the satisfaction, the prestige of the role he wanted, did that mental movie every night, really felt it. And within days, apparently, he got an unexpected job offer that was exactly what he'd been visualizing. The outside world matched the inner picture.
Then there's another technique, the Baudouin technique. I sometimes think of it as mental whispering or the lullaby method. This one's apparently very effective because it helps bypass that critical, analytical, conscious mind. The idea is to get into a really relaxed, drowsy, passive state, like just before you fall asleep or just as you wake up, and then you repeat a short, simple phrase that sums up your desire over and over like a lullaby until you drift off.
That passive, drowsy state seems key because you're not forcing it, right? Minimizes mental effort. Like the woman in that bitter lawsuit example. She was drained, couldn't fight anymore. She just used this method, repeating, "It is finished in divine order." Just that simple phrase, felt quietly, and by doing that repetitively in that receptive state, she impregnated her subconscious and boom, the other side suddenly wanted to settle.
But we have to pause here for probably the biggest pitfall, especially for ambitious people. It's called the law of reversed effort. Basically, if you try to force something with willpower, if you strain really hard mentally to make something happen, you often get the exact opposite. Why? Because the effort itself implies there's opposition, there's difficulty. The underlying dominant idea, which is usually fear of failure or a sense of struggle, that's what wins out. That's what the subconscious grabs onto.
Oh, okay. So, like, if I'm trying really hard, gritting my teeth, saying, I am successful, but deep down I'm just feeling this massive anxiety about debt.
The subconscious tunes into the anxiety, not the forced words.
Precisely. It picks up on the dominant feeling. The solution isn't more force, more willpower. It's effortless feeling and imagination. You guide the subconscious gently with feelings of satisfaction, ease, accomplishment already achieved, rather than trying to bully it with mental strain. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And this principle, it applies across the board, doesn't it? Not just goals, but like your physical health too. The source really emphasizes that the subconscious created your body. It maintains it, so it has the power to heal anything it created, assuming the conscious mind gets out of the way.
That's a massive idea, isn't it? The professor with the recurring ulcers is a perfect case study. Those ulcers weren't just random. They were the physical result of a persistent mental pattern. Stress, worry, fear. He needed to change the pattern, but didn't know how. Once he learned these techniques, started redirecting his inner conversation away from anxiety. The healing wasn't just temporary, it stuck.
And it's the same for success and wealth, too. This really flips the script on the usual hustle harder model. The book says true wealth is basically a subconscious conviction.
Yeah, it's entirely an inside job. You don't get wealthy just by grinding away, working harder and harder necessarily. You grow into a wealth consciousness. You build the idea, the feeling of abundance and prosperity in your mind until that becomes your default setting, your natural state. If you constantly feel lack, feel like a pauper deep down, you'll act and attract accordingly, no matter how hard you work on the outside. You have to consciously impress the feeling of having plenty, not the feeling of not enough.
Right, because if your dominant thought, your feeling, is about what you lack, the subconscious is just diligently creating more lack. To turn that around, you have to start from the feeling that the supply, the flow, is already there, abundant.
Mm-hmm. And there's a really important caveat here, too. For success to be stable, harmonious, it needs to have non-selfish motives, according to this text. If your drive for wealth or success is purely about you just hoarding for yourself, the circuit isn't complete. And the material suggests this often leads to limitations, problems, even illness down the line. Real success, the kind that lasts, has to contribute something, benefit others in some way.
Interesting point. And moving to just the rhythm of life. Sleep comes up a lot. The idea that the subconscious never sleeps. It's always working. And healing happens faster then.
Yes, because the conscious mind, with all its worries, its criticisms, its doubts, is finally quiet. It's the biggest interferer, usually. When you're asleep, the subconscious is free to do its repair work, its maintenance, without being constantly contradicted or second-guessed. Robert Louis Stevenson apparently knew this. When he needed money, needed ideas, he would deliberately charge his subconscious before sleep. Basically, give it the task of developing plot lines for marketable stories. And he'd often wake up with the next part of the story fully formed in his mind.
Huh. That's the ultimate work from bed setup. Okay, so this whole deep dive, it really shows that this miracle working power isn't something we have to earn or find. It's already there. We just need to learn how to direct it. We've seen the mechanism, that subconscious is the literal doer, no questions asked. And we've got the techniques to give it the right blueprints.
Exactly. And to really bring it home, just remember that core truth from the text. You are the captain of your soul, your subconscious mind, and the master of your fate. You have the power, the capacity to choose. Choose life, choose love, choose health, choose happiness. It comes down to the quality of the seeds you're planting.
So if we're the captains, maybe the challenge for all of us this week is pretty simple. What maybe toxic thoughts, what unhelpful seeds are we currently letting slip past the watchman at the gate, and what specific mental movie or what little lullaby phrase are we going to consciously replace them with? It really seems to be the heart of using this power.
Well said. And maybe one final thought to leave you with, something from the deeper parts of the material about application. It's about aging. The text strongly suggests the subconscious mind itself is timeless, ageless, endless. And the research presented indicates that it's the fear of time, the societal conditioning about decline, not time itself, that has the primary aging effect on the body. So the challenge then becomes, can you reject that negative mental blueprint of old age? Can you stop fearing decline? And instead, consciously focus your mind on timeless, enduring qualities like kindness, goodwill, truth, peace, joy. Because if you focus on what's eternal, the argument goes your inner system, your subconscious, is far more likely to keep you feeling and even looking young. Forever young, perhaps.